everybody. Now, as everyone here knows, whoops, go ahead. Get your footing or your kneeing or whatever it is. So as everyone knows, we've all been sworn in by the Chief Justice of the United States to serve as judges and jurors in the impeachment trial of President Trump. When the Chief Justice walked in, you could feel the weight of the moment. I saw members on both sides of the aisle visibly gulp. The weight of history sits on shoulders and produces sometimes results you never know will happen. For some of us here, this is the first time we've done this. For others, like myself, it's the second time, but I assure you, there's no difference. Even though I've gone through this before, for all of us, the solemnity, the gravity of the moment in our history hits you square in the back when you take that oath. A separate oath designed by the Senate only for senators who will serve on a court of impeachment. The feeling in the Senate chamber was solemn, serious, profound. The weight of history, the eyes of history, you feel it, are upon you. I know every one of my colleagues felt it. I hope my colleagues on the other side of the aisle felt it. You all heard the reading of the articles of impeachment by Representative Schiff at noon. It was a solemn recitation of charges that, if proved, are crimes against our democracy itself. To actually hear the charges read, even though we've heard them many times before, impresses the seriousness of the charges. This is not something trivial. This is not something everybody does. This is not something that can be dismissed. President Donald Trump is accused of coercing a foreign leader into interfering in our elections and then doing everything in his power to cover it up. These are exactly the kind of offenses the founders most feared when they forged the impeachment clause in the Constitution. Do we want foreign powers to determine our elections? Do the American people want someone from overseas determining who's their president, who's their governor, who's their senator, who's their congressman? This is what the nation has feared for centuries. And we fear it today more than ever with this president. This is very, very serious stuff. This is not trivial, because it's hard to imagine a greater subversion of our democracy than for powers outside our borders to determine the elections within our borders. And for a country to attempt such a thing on its own, as Russia has done, is bad enough. For an American president to deliberately solicit such a thing, to blackmail a foreign country with military assistance to help them win an election, is unimaginably worse. I am actually filled with anger when you read the attempt to subvert our democracy. So these charges are serious, very. And it's on those charges which the Senate has to render a verdict. Remarkably, crucial pieces of information related to the charges against the president are still coming out. Last night, Lev Parnas, an associate of the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, gave an astonishing interview on national television that further implicated the president in a plot to remove the U.S. ambassador and pressure Ukrainian President Zelensky into announcing investigations into one of the president's leading rivals. And just today, through the good work of Chris Van Hollen, who you'll hear from shortly, the GAO found that it was illegal for President Trump to withhold military assistance from Ukraine to pressure them to interfere in the 2020 elections. Both the revelations about Mr. Parnas and the GAO opinion strengthen our push for witnesses and documents in the trial. The GAO opinion especially makes clear that the documents we requested in our letter to Leader McConnell are even more needed now than when we requested it last month, because President Trump, simply put, broke the law. Every senator will get a chance to vote to obtain these documents next week. Now, returning to how I began, the oath we all just took will weigh heavily on senators to consider this question about how fair a trial we have. We have asked for 4 fact-based fact witnesses and 3 specific sets of relevant documents. The witnesses are not Democrats. They are the President's men, his top advisors, who he appointed. The documents are not Democratic documents. They are just documents, period. Every Senate impeachment trial in our history, all 15 that were brought to completion, featured witnesses. Every single one. Leader McConnell is fond of citing precedent. We've all heard him about 1999. The precedent in impeachment trials in the Senate is to have witnesses. To have no witnesses would be a dramatic break with precedent. It would mean the first impeachment trial of a president in history with no witnesses. The first impeachment trial of anybody that went to completion in the Senate's 200 and some odd year history without witnesses. So in the coming days, each of us, every one of us, Democrat and Republican, will face a choice about whether to begin this trial in the search of truth or in service of the President's desire to cover it up. Now that every senator has sworn a solemn oath before God and the American people to do impartial justice, let every senator reflect on that choice and let history weigh on every one of our shoulders. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Leader Schumer. I would argue that not only is this an impeachment trial, but that the very integrity of the United States Senate is on trial. What is before us are charges that are arguably the most serious charges that have ever been leveled against a President of the United States, and where there has been an abandonment of responsibility to uphold the ideals, much less the words of the United States Constitution by the President of the United States. That responsibility now rests on the shoulders of each member of the United States Senate, which is to uphold the integrity of our system of democracy, uphold the integrity of our system of justice, and to uphold the integrity of the United States Senate, which has a responsibility to do fair and impartial justice, which means demanding that the American public and each member of this body receive all evidence, documents, and individuals who are witnesses, so that we can engage in a fair deliberation and make a decision that reflects the ideals and the values and the very principles of the United States system of justice. And so that is what is before us today. And we took a very solemn oath. It's a very serious matter, which each of us should take responsibly and take seriously, understanding that whatever the party affiliation of the President of the United States, right now it is incumbent on the United States Senate to do the work of upholding America's Constitution and our very system of justice.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Senator Coons.
Thank you, Senator Schumer. Senator Harris, raising my right hand and swearing to do impartial justice was a solemn moment for all of us, a moment when the very weight of history becomes clear. To be in the chamber as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court strode up to the podium and took his oath to do impartial justice, made clear the gravity and the historic nature of this moment. Over this coming weekend, we really have 2 questions that I think our colleagues need to wrestle with. One is this going to be a trial? There's a simple reality. In America, trials have evidence, and cover-ups do not. Trials have evidence. They have documents, they have witnesses that are relevant to the matter in front of us. And Leader Schumer has, by letter, asked that we consider 4 different witnesses who are directly relevant, who were senior leaders in this administration, who were in the room on the email chain and could testify, if they testified truthfully, to whether the president did or did not inappropriately block aid to Ukraine, as has been charged. This is a big departure from previous investigations of presidents for impeachment that President Trump has used an overly broad assertion of executive privilege to try and block critical testimony. President Clinton, even President Nixon, directed his closest advisors and his cabinet officials to cooperate with an investigation, which leads to the second issue. The second article is obstruction of Congress. The president has to decide, is he going to present a defense? If he hopes to claim exoneration, he has to have put a defense in front of this Senate. So far, the evidence developed and presented in front of the House Intelligence Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, and that led them to take up and vote 2 articles of impeachment seems very compelling, largely because the president has declined to present a defense. He will have his chance in briefs over these next few days and in the conduct of this trial. So I would say to my colleagues on the other side, please spend the weekend reflecting on the importance of this moment, on the ways in which I would agree the Senate itself is on trial, and see whether you can be open to the idea that we should have a trial, not a cover-up, that features documents, evidence, witnesses, rather than an historic sham that fails to meet the moment. Thank you.
Senator Blumenthal.
I thought that Senator Schumer captured well the extraordinary drama of this moment. I was struck by the deep, steep sense of solemnity, and there was a knot in my stomach when the Chief Justice came into the chamber and then pronounced the name Donald John Trump. The difference in the reference to President Trump struck me as really distinguishing this proceeding from any other. And in fact, nothing we do while we serve in the United States Senate will be more important and consequential than putting country above party in this proceeding. The report released by the GAO, an independent, nonpartisan watchdog agency, squarely raises the importance of Mick Mulvaney as a witness. He was the acting director of the OMB that withheld the money. He took the president's orders. John Bolton was the witness who tried to dissuade the president from this so-called drug deal. Direct contact with the President of the United States. Robert Blair and Michael Duffy, not just the president's men, they were the president's henchmen. They executed the drug deal. Each of these witnesses had eyes and ears on the President of the United States. They have firsthand knowledge. They are the witnesses who must appear, and maybe they will have evidence to show the president's innocence. Maybe they will help to exonerate him. But the president has refused all of those witnesses. He has gagged them as he has blocked all the documents. And let me say about the documents, as we argued to the jury, documents don't lie. It's black and white. It's there without any shading. And an effort by the president's defense team to use a document that they have blocked should be excluded, as it would be in any trial. They should be playing by the rules of a full and fair proceeding, not a cover-up, which is what the president has sought to do. And so I hope my Republican colleagues will, in fact, put country above party and decide that the American people want a full, fair, and open proceeding so that they will know all of the truth and all of these corroborating witnesses. The case is already overwhelming, but I'm going to be listening. I will be listening closely to every word, watching every video and document that we see, and I will try to be as full and fair as I can be as a considerer of the fact and the law here.
Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Senator Schumer. As we were sworn in today for this historic moment, we received a very important report from the GAO. The GAO, the Government Accountability Office, is an independent, nonpartisan entity. They're not Republicans, they're not Democrats, they're not independents, they're nonpartisan. And they issued a decision making absolutely clear that the Trump administration violated the law when they illegally withheld the monies for Ukraine. And we know from other public evidence that it was President Trump himself who made that order, and therefore the President himself ordered his agencies to commit an illegal act. That's the gist and guts of what the GAO told us. Now, that illegal act was committed as part of the overall scheme of abuse of power that we heard from the House managers today, read on the floor of the Senate, that Senator Schumer mentioned. And it just underscores the fact that this president was willing to break other laws as part of his overall scheme to abuse power and to cover up that abusive scheme. And the GAO report also made clear that in their inquiry, in their investigation, they were stonewalled, they were blocked, they didn't get all the documents they wanted. And in their report, they said they believe that raises constitutional questions, which it does. I'll just end by pointing out that the whole purpose of the Impoundment Control Act is to reinforce the Constitution of the United States, the power of the purse and separation of powers. And so in ordering the violation of that law as part of the overall abuse of power scheme, the President again showed contempt for the Constitution of the United States. And finally, the GAO report, like other evidence that's come out, has underscored the importance of having relevant fact witnesses and relevant documents. You don't have a fair trial if you don't get all the evidence. The House has established a mountain of evidence supporting their claims. But all of us have said that we want to see all the evidence. The American people are entitled to the evidence. And I also will wait till all the evidence is in and listen to all that evidence, which we don't know what it will be, before rendering a final verdict in this case.
And one other point related to what Chris said. It seems very likely that the very documents that were withheld to the GAO are among the documents we requested in the letter that I wrote to McConnell 3 weeks ago. Questions?
Senator Schumer, you've been pretty consistent the last couple of weeks about wanting 4 witnesses. I wonder if in the wake of what we learned from Lev Parnas's texts and photos and emails and in his interviews, if you now think it needs to be 5.
Okay, well, these 4 eyewitnesses are fact witnesses who know exactly what happened. Some of our Republican colleagues say these charges are serious, but there are no eyewitnesses. That's why we need these 4. Now, Mr. Parnas raises lots of serious questions. It certainly increases the strength of our argument for having these 4. And as for Mr. Parnas, it's something we wouldn't rule out, but we want to see all of the evidently there are 4 sets of emails coming out, and I'd want to wait to see those.
Senator, how is the House impeachment managers prepare their case? How closely are you going to be working with House impeachment managers and the Speaker's office as you prepare your strategy?
Well, conferring, that always happens, as has happened in previous trials, as happens with the Republicans and the President. There's one big difference. McConnell said he's going to take his cues from the President. We are taking our cues from nobody.
Do you plan to force votes on witnesses
I believe that, you know, again, Leader McConnell has still not shown anybody his resolution. We don't know how long things will be and anything else. It's amazing that at this moment we still haven't seen it, and it's amazing the partisanship, because by partisanship, by definition, you try to work something out. We haven't heard a thing from them about it, but we know why. They're afraid of the truth. It's obvious. That's what the average person says. You know, average people say, why are they hiding this? So we expect that we will have votes on these witnesses on Tuesday, but we can't be sure till we see the resolution that McConnell has put together. Yes.
Following up on that, are there some other things that we might see you try to amend, some of the things that are on your radar that you're looking at this resolution?
Well, you know, we definitely want these 4 witnesses and 3 sets of documents. Whether there'll be other things and in what order we'll do them, we don't know yet.
Is there any indication that the solemnity of what went on today on the floor, that could change some of your Republican colleagues' attitudes about the political nature?
Look, we know the pressure there will be. We know the kinds of threats that Donald Trump is not afraid to use with all of them. I just read what he told Europe, that he was going to raise tariffs on them, I think, by 25% if they didn't go along with what he wanted in Iran. So you can't underestimate that. But if you believe the truth is right and the truth prevails, the wisdom of the Founding Fathers and what we saw in the chamber this afternoon, the solemnity, the weight, the fact that you're almost in a different world than the normal Senate world, gives me some hope that a number of our Senate colleagues will rise to the occasion. Well, I don't know how they'll vote. We don't even know what the evidence will be. It could be exculpatory. It could be further incriminating. We don't know, but we want the truth. And maybe some Republicans will rise to the occasion, because this is the second one I've been through. It's different. It's different than day-to-day, normal being a legislator.
Leader Schumer, there's a chance that I guess some of the deliberations and debate might be in closed session. Would you prefer that would actually be an open session so that we could see the debate?
Okay, I would like it to be as open. I mean, might there be an occasional moment where we think we might come together in a closed session? Yes, but the strong presumption is to be open, and I want to see as much of it open as possible.
Republicans have floated the idea of calling Vice President Biden as a witness. Vice President Biden has said that he would testify if subpoenaed. Would you be willing to come to some kind of arrangement whereby, let's say, Democrats would get John Bolton as a witness and Republicans?
Well, listen, I'm not going to negotiate out here. I'm saying we need these 4 witnesses. We need these 3 sets of documents. They haven't made any offer about any witnesses or any documents, so we're just fighting for this at minimum.
Do the House managers face any limits on what they can present for the prosecution? Can they add the materials that have come out since the...
Well, it has to be the only articles of impeachment are done. But their briefs, they can say, I might expect, I do not know, that a lot of the Lev Parnas stuff and maybe the GAO stuff would be in their briefs. One more. Yes.
When you said you expect to have votes on witnesses, does that mean that the organizing resolution does not include language on witnesses?
I have not seen the organizing resolution. I think a whole lot of Republicans have not seen the organizing resolution. Thanks, everybody. Have a nice weekend.